Hi everyone. So today I'm going to show you how to make a nice shopping bag for yourself using an old unwanted t-shirt or just giving it a second life, one that you quite like and no longer wear. And this is what it looks like. Nice soft cotton t-shirt. This is one I made a few days ago. Very roomy, very spacious, very comfortable to wear, and got lots of storage space. And it requires absolutely no sewing. To get started, you need an old t-shirt, preferably one of your own, fits better, but it's okay if it's smaller or bigger, just not by too much. A pair of scissors, good for fabric, a ruler, and a marker pen. And if you don't have a marker pen, we can still make do and just do it by sight. Before we get started cutting, I want you to just have a look at your t-shirt. The black outline on this piece of paper shows you what most t-shirts should look like. It doesn't matter if yours is a little bit fitted or really baggy, but ideally if it's your size, it will fit your body quite well once you've made the bag. So the little dashed blue lines is where we'll actually be cutting. So we'll be using the shoulder, the top of the t-shirt, where it folds over naturally over your shoulder to be the top of the bag, and then we're going to cut a much deeper neck. You may have a V-neck or a round neck, so we're going to cut a deeper neck that goes up to a little bit below the armpit level. And the reason for that is whenever you slip on a shopping bag, you want it to slip on very easily and to be able to open it and fill it while you've got it half on your shoulder. So you want to make those cuts nice and deep, but not too deep that you lose volume in the bag, but a little bit below the armpit level if it's one of your own t-shirts. If it's one that's bigger or smaller for yourself, you might want to sort of size it up, hold a shirt up against yourself and decide where you want to do those cuts. Then on every t-shirt we've got a natural sort of neckline or sort of hem that's been sewn in there, and we also have the hem on the end of the arms and also at the bottom. So we're not going to do anything with the arms, but it's just to illustrate that we're going to cut off that hem at the bottom, and we're also going to make sure that whenever we're cutting these straps on the top that we're not cutting into that neck piece. We don't want that to be part of it, and we also don't want to cut into the seam that lies between the two, between the arm and the rest of the body of the t-shirt. So we don't want to cut through this. We want to make sure we're always working in that open piece of material. And one other thing to bear in mind is if you have any logos like I have. So mine is, I'm not going to be able to save all of that because I need to make a much deeper neck. I can make a more shallow neck, but that means that I can't use it in the shops and open it as easily off one shoulder to fill things in it. So I found it better to make a deeper neck. So I'm probably going to use some of this, but I'm going to try and preserve this little emblem at the bottom just because I think it looks nice. You decide if there's something you want to get rid of. You might want to be crafty with how you cut your neck. If you've got a hole on your t-shirt that is the reason why you're upcycling it, you want to make sure that you are getting that hole cut out. But then there's one more step which you need to be aware of, and that's how we stitch up the bottom. So we're not stitching, we're not sewing at all, but we are going to cut a fringe out of this bottom piece once we've cut the hem off, and we're then going to knot that fringe together to seal it off at the bottom. We can either have that fringe hanging out or we can have it hidden inside from the example that I showed you just now. But that will also give you some leeway. So if you've got holes around the bottom of the shirt, they should disappear within that knotting pattern. And you also want to make sure that once you've cut off the hem, once you've cut your fringe, once you've knotted it, that you've got enough body to your bag. You don't want your bag to become too shallow. So it's a balance between how deep you want the armpits to be and how much bag space you want. You could make it a really small upright bag that sits quite higher on your torso. It's entirely up to you, but these are the basics of it. So keep this visual in mind when we get to cutting. The next step is to take your marker pen and to start marking out your pattern as I've illustrated on this graphic below. So I've got a very dark blue, so this black isn't going to show very well, but I'm going to do it just roughly. And always start wider. You can always make something smaller if you don't like it, but you can't make it bigger. So I'm just going to go ahead and add those markings for my bag. So I've marked up my t-shirt and where I'm going to cut it. I've landed up going with a bit more of a pointier neck because I want to keep some of this orange and a bit more of the logo. So that's just my preference. You can do a square edge. The t-shirt fabric isn't as forgiving with a square edge, as in you can see the cuts quite easily. So I would recommend a nice soft round one or a pointier one like I've done. And you want the bottom of the neck to sort of line up very close to where the armpits end. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out. I'm going to make sure I cut the markings out because I don't want them to stay on the bag, and I'm also going to cut off the hem at the bottom. Laying my t-shirt really flat, I have cut out the neckline, the armpits, so it looks like a big saggy vest, and I've also cut off the hem at the bottom. The hem I haven't done too neatly, but that's because it's all going to disappear inside. The top ends I want to make sure are neat and symmetrical. Mine seems to be quite symmetrical, but what's really handy is while it's flat is to fold it in half, pull the armpits out, flatten it as if you were folding it really neatly, and check how well it lines up. If your straps are the same width, I can see that my one strap's a bit wider than the other. So I'm going to go ahead and do it just a bit of a correction there because I like a bag that's really symmetrical. And also if you've got any sort of really jaggedy bits that you didn't cut very well or didn't line up very well, you might want to just go ahead and clear those up. Once your neck and shoulder straps are neatened, you want to go to the bottom of the shirt, lay it flat on your surface, and start to cut out your tassels. Make sure that your tassels just need to be big enough for you to knot comfortably. So I'd say 2 inches, 5 centimeters, roughly around that width. If you want the fringe or tassels to be a decorative part, you might want to make them deeper. Also, if you want to make a shallower bag. But usually, if it's a bag that's a t-shirt that was yours, your armpit width and the tassels at the bottom make it a perfect height naturally. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut these by eye, but all I want to make sure is that the part where the tassels end is in a straight line. So you might want to draw a straight line just to make sure you're all lining up, or just leave your ruler in place like I'm going to do. And you want your tassels to be about 1 inch wide or 1.5 centimeters. I have actually landed up adding a straight line, but I wanted to just mention one other thing before I finish cutting the fringe, is that if you want more of a curved edge to the base of your bag, you can do your tassels in a curve, so that instead of you working to a straight line, you're working to a symmetrical curve upwards, which also gives it a nice finish at the bottom. When you get to this very last tassel, actually I'm going to cut one more out of it, you have to remember the t-shirt's connected all the way around, so you need to cut that one in half, this end one, by just running your scissors along the end there so that it becomes 2 pieces, and do the same on the other side. Yeah. And then this one as well, because instead of having 2 little bits, it's actually 1 piece folded in half. Right, so all of my fringe is done. Now you just need to decide if you want your fringe to be a decorative feature that hangs out the bottom, which you can make knotted patterns with, or if you want it concealed on the inside. For this example, I'm going to do it on the inside. So that means I need to flip my t-shirt inside out. So I'm going to take it and unfold it, flip it inside out. So you can see the back of the logos and all the fringe at the bottom. Now the last thing to do is to just make sure it's all lined up really nicely and flat, and to just go and fold these fringe bits together. Now ready to start the knotting, and all it is a simple case of an over and under knot going all the way across, with each top piece being knotted to the bottom piece, so they're always in pairs. Some of them have twisted a bit. So you want this piece to knot with that one, so you do one over and under knot, pull it really tight, then do another one on top of it and pull that very tight, and keep going, and always work with the one fringe piece that's on top of the other, so they're always connecting the bottom of the bag together. So I'm going to go ahead and finish doing this. It takes a few minutes. Double knot on each one, and as tight as you can get it. I have finished all my knotting, and it forms a bit of a clump now because it's really gathered up quite tightly. You can stretch it a bit, but not too much. And I've got all these little tassels, and I've done them short because they're going to be concealed, but you'll notice that the more you stretch a strip of cotton, it starts to curl in on itself and actually look quite pretty. So it's not bad if you do it on the outside, but you would need longer strips. And if you did do it as a fringe on the outside, you would then go hang them all up and cut them nicely so that they're all straight at the bottom. But these are going to disappear, so what I can do is I can also trim them. But before I do that, I just want to check there's no major holes in the bottom of my bag. So I flip the bag over, and I'm just going to open it up and have a look if I can see any big gaps in the knotting. You shouldn't really, there will be small gaps, but if you see any, you might want to just do another knot with sort of some cross cross fringes, but this is actually looking really good to me, so I'm not going to add any extra knotting, which means I can go ahead and get rid of these tassels. So make sure if your knots are all tight you can cut them off, but if they're not, go and reinforce all of them. So mine are all being done really tightly, so I'm just going to take my scissors and trim them off. I don't want them completely gone so they disappear or sort of shrink into the knot, but yeah, I'm going to leave just a few millimeters off and cut them off so they don't become debris lurking in the bottom of the bag. So I've trimmed all of the inside, it all looks really neat, I'm not worried about any holes. So the last thing to do is to just turn it back inside out to see my finished product and give it a try on. So, looks cool. You can see the base. It is crunched up, but obviously once you start filling it with things it starts to flesh out and look better, and it slips on really nice and easily. Sits nice in my waist, and I've preserved some of the logo as well. So very happy with that. Very functional, easy to wash, easy to take care of, and given a previously loved t-shirt a new lease on life as a shopping bag. Enjoy making yours.